I'm going to start this discussion off with one of the most well-rounded melee classes, the Warrior. While it can tank a lot of damage and does a fair amount of damage, it's not good enough at a range or able to do enough damage to where it's a better pick than anything else. I'd honestly not recommend picking Warrior, but it can be a good class for people starting off because it's not that hard to get down and understand. Next class is the Paladin. Paladin is one of my personal favorite classes just because of how well rounded it is. It's great for soloing or when you're with a party because Paladin can heal large amounts and deal a bunch of damage while also having a huge health pool. He doesn't have a lot of ranged attack powers, but there are ranged spells for when you need to do that extra little damage when your enemies are fleeing. The next class is Priest. I think Priest... You know what? I'm going to bump up Paladin because of how well-rounded it is and put Priest in A tier. Priest is the quintessential healer. Every party either needs a Priest or a Paladin. The only reason Priest is below Paladin is because Paladin can do all sorts of things, and the only way you're really going to be dealing damage with a Priest is if you're going Shadow Priest, which is a great subclass, but it's not as good as Paladin can be. Demon Hunter. So, Demon Hunter is one of the newest classes added. I honestly am not the biggest fan of it. The ability to jump up a bunch of levels right at start is huge, but not only can you only use it on, I believe, Night Elves and Dark Elves, or Night Elves and Blood Elves, but it's not that revolutionary. It's kind of like the Warlock Demonologist class, without the summoning abilities. So, honestly, I'm gonna put Demon Hunter in C tier. Good when you need to boost a bunch of levels early game, but other than that, not really that good. Next we have Rogue, one of the most popular classes, and one that I'm not really a big fan of. While you can get down a lot of damage and you can do a lot of poison damage, the only real reason for this is when you're scouting out dungeons with a big party or raid group, and even then it's not that powerful when you can just Google a guide. I would not recommend the Rogue unless you're just want to see what the gameplay's about. My favorite part about it though is the ability to lockpick and pickpocket. Those add a lot to the class and let you do a lot more than you normally would without it. Next up, we have Death Knight. Death Knight is... Okay, Death Knight's C tier, and Demon Hunter is D tier. One of my first characters was a Death Knight, just because I wanted those extra boosted levels when I was younger, and didn't want to grind out all that time. So I started with a Death Knight, and it was fine. I could summon things. It's got a really cool plot line where you overthrow the Lich King, but other than the ability to summon creatures to fight, it's like a hunter, but not as interesting. The hunter has a lot more class things, and the Death Knight's really only good part is the plot of that story. But speaking of Hunter, I will rank Hunter A tier. I know that's going to be a controversial pick, but Hunter is pretty well-rounded. It can do all sorts of things. It's great because you have a companion that can be any type of companion you want. Once you have the ability to trap and domesticate any animal, the world's your oyster. Like, you can do anything. You could have like a dragon if I had a high enough level. So Hunter's pretty crazy, and you can switch between both ranged attacks and close range depending on what type of damage you want to deal out. And you can have your pet be a tank, a damage, or a support. So really great for that. Next up, we have the quintessential damage class, the Mage. The Mage is amazing damage, but as they say, you'll die from 1d4 of damage. It has almost no way to defend itself and can be easily countered by any sort of silence from like a warlock or a shaman. So if it can deal great area of effect and some damage over time, but it's great for dealing large amounts of damage in a short amount of time. Next up we have Shaman. And honestly, Shaman is my least favorite class. A lot of people love Shaman. I respect that. Shaman's garbage. You can summon things to like boost your teammates, but it's not as good as you'd be getting with like a priest or a paladin, and the damage buffs aren't any better than like a debuff from the others. So Shaman's gonna have to be in last. Not good enough to fight with the rest. Next up is Druid. And I'd say Druid early game and when you're just starting out is one of the best classes. Because when you're starting out, you don't know what kind of archetype you want to go. You've never played the game before. You might have only watched a few tutorials, not know what the game's all about. Druid can really introduce you to that level. The ability to change between, be fluid about what class type you want to be. If you want to be a tank, a damage, a support, you can change between all of those, plus certain traits allow you to do even more with that. Honestly, great class for beginners, but as they say, a jack of all trades is a master of none, which is still better than a master of one. The Monk is a pretty well-rounded class. I'm not a big fan of Monk. I never really played Monk, but it can do some good melee damage and put out some good debuffs and buffs. Really just the role-playing class if you want to try out your hand at role-playing. Now my personal favorite class above the rest, this is definitely showing my bias because it was the first class I played, but Warlock. The best class in the game because you have the ability to do whatever you want. Say you want to be more damage and not want to have a lot of health, you can get a blueberry or a shadow walker be your tank for you and take all the damage. Want to do some damage and have some supportive damage, you can get an imp. Want to just destroy, just take out and ruin a mage's day, get a succubus and go full on deafening. Just destroy that guy's day. Warlock can do all of that and do a bunch of damage over time. He is one of the best, most powerful classes you can pick from. I would recommend him over almost any other class. He was the one I started with. He was the one that taught me everything I know. I'd really recommend the Warlock. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the races. Now, take what I say with a grain of salt because I'm not going to be going super in depth with each of these, and honestly, you can really play whatever you like when you're playing this game. The race isn't really a big thing, but what is a big factor in this is Horde versus Alliance. I personally have always been a Horde player. Horde gives you almost everything. It gives you great characters, great plot, and who wants to be the good guys? They're always the worst. So let's just open up with the best. And we're going to start with the Horde. First, we're going to start with a Goblin from the Horde. Goblin is a interesting class. He I believe has the most racial moves. He's got the ability to rocket jump, which gives you good mobility. The ability to do a decent amount of damage early game. Has great money offerings, gives you best way to make money, and is great with alchemy and chemistry, depending on how you call it. And you have your own personal bank. Overall, the best class for making money. I'd honestly put him A tier. He's great for alchemy, great for making money. Next up's gonna be the Blood Elf. One of the few classes that can get Demon Hunter. Not that that's that great. It has an ability that allows you to. Let me check. I haven't played them much. Removes beneficial effects from enemies all around you, which can be huge when you're in like a big fight and you're taking down shields from enemies. But the ability to help with enchanting really isn't that good. The initial starting skill of bonus enchanting and plus 1% critical strike and reduce damage from arcane. Not that great. I'd honestly put Blood Elf C tier. Great class, great lore, but not that amazing in combat. Next up is going to be Orc. Orc is probably the most common of the ones you'll see. You see them all the time in the story. They were here from Warcraft 1. One of the main characters there, so you're going to see them all the time. Their ability to increase your melee attack and spell power is pretty good, but not good enough to warrant picking them over everything else. But one of my favorite parts is the bonus damage from pets. This can like save you if you're going hunter, or in my case, warlock. Because the bonus damage to those enemies with your pets can really destroy the enemy. Also, if you are playing a class like mage or warlock, you won't have to worry about stun because you're reduced. You have stun reduced by 25%. So really great stuff overall. I'm gonna put him in A tier. Not as good as Goblin, but pretty good. Next up, we have Undead. From the start, I'm gonna put Undead in S tier. Not only do you get a great ability to eat dead enemies to get a bunch of health back after a fight, you can remove any charms, fears, or sleep effects on you from any enemies. So like great against warlocks and when you're playing as a warlock. Also, the ability to breathe underwater, while a minor one, can be huge when you're playing something like a warrior and you don't have a warlock on your team. Great utility. Doesn't come up all that often, but when it does, it is really helpful. Also, the reduced shadow damage isn't that great, but still easy S tier. Next up, we have Troll. The Troll is a hard one. While it does get a bonus experience from killing wild animals, and you can increase your melee ranged and spell haste by 15% with its ability. It's not good enough to be an A tier, but it's not as terrible to be in the C tier. I'm gonna put it in the B tier, and I think its health regeneration increase rate is one of the biggest parts, because that just really helps with the trolls. Also, great plot line behind the trolls. Really recommend going and looking into it. Next up, we have the Tauren, the last in the strictly horde choices. I'm gonna put the Tauren in B tier. Tauren gives you great bonus to critical, and it gives you a huge 15 increase to herbalism, but the ability isn't good enough to. It only stuns enemies for 2 seconds, which isn't huge. Can be useful, but not huge, and its resistances aren't great. Honestly, Tauren's worse than Troll, but better than Blood Elf. We're gonna do Pandarian now. Pandarian is great for the utility alone. You can either go Alliance or Horde, depending on how you're feeling that day. But the bonuses with actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna put them A tier. They've got great resistances, no fall very reduced fall damage, and you earn twice as much rested experience. So if you're gonna be in cities a lot, great class. I'd say it's better than the Orc, but not better than the Goblin. Great class overall. Next up, we have the Dwarf. The resident short man himself, or herself. You find additional fragments when looting archaeologist sites. I'm not really one to do the archaeology, but if you are, it can help you a lot. And its ability to remove status effects and reduce damage by 10% can be huge when in combat. I'm gonna put him in, or put them in B tier, above Tauren, but behind Troll. Next up, we have the... I'm probably going to mispronounce this. Draenei. The Draenei, I never really played, so I'm going to have to look at their wiki. But... So they can heal themselves 20% of their health over 5 seconds, which sounds amazing. But only a bonus to jewel crafting isn't that great when jewel crafting is one of the few professions you never use. I'm gonna put them in C tier. Not that great. Can be useful, but not that great. Next up, we have humans. I hate humans. I put them in F. You know what? I'm gonna put them in F tier. Terrible. Unless you're not gonna. They're well-rounded. That's all they're good at. They have reputation gains with everything, and they're okay in all traits. Unlike Druid, I'd say being a jack of all trades and a master of none is not better than being a master of one. So would not recommend human. Very bad. Next up, we have Worgen. I really like the Worgen, so I'm going to put him in A tier. I think the ability to switch between sprinting without having to have a mount is pretty great. The ability to switch between two different, basically, races, you can switch between the two, is pretty powerful. You have increased skinning, which is really useful when helping out your other accounts. And you can increase really just everything. Great class. A really important part of the plot as well. Then we have the Night Elf. Night Elf. It's again one of those few classes that can pick the Demon Hunter. but that's not really saying much. It's okay, but it's not great. It's increased speed when active. So when you're playing druid or rogue, you can sneak around really well while stealth. So it's great for stealthing. It's got uh, oh, you can slip it. That's the thing I remember. You can stealth yourself even without being a um you can uh, you can stealth yourself without being a rogue or a druid, which is huge when you want to just get out of combat for a second, heal up. And the fact that you can go fast when you're dead, you don't see it that often, but it is huge. And finally, Gnome. You know I gotta put him in S tier. Gnome best. Gnome the best. The only reason he's not in front of Undead's because Hoyt's better. But the Gnome, overall, amazing class. You get huge bonuses to engineering. You can escape any immobilization things. You have huge mana and energy bonuses. And you have increased haste. Overall, great class. Honestly, I love the gnome. But that's all she wrote. That's gonna wrap us up for today. I hope you guys had an amazing time, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.